When Hellbent was young, him and his mom were going uptown to get a new game. They were sitting on the train that would take them uptown when Hellbent got really freaked out. He saw someone on the train who looked exactly like him. He had the same long black hair, the same brown eyes, same lips, and even the same clothes. The doppelganger also freaked out. After they both got off the train, Hellbent asked his mom,
Mom, was that my lost twin?
His mother then jokingly replied with, "Oh my, I think that was your lost twin. Quick, let's go get him." And after that day, he never saw his twin again.
When Doopy was growing up, she had a really creepy neighbor. The guy who lived next door was just an all-around weird guy and would sometimes watch Doopy come home from school. She could see him peeking through his curtains. And on her birthday, he would knock on her door and wish her a happy birthday, then give her a hug that went on for way longer than she was comfortable with. The guy's name was Dale, but he would sign her birthday card as Daddy Dale. Ugh, what a creep.
Nixium had just started studying at college when he met a girl and asked her on a date. She asked if they could go to the most expensive restaurant in town. He hesitated, but said, "Sure, why not?" When he got to the restaurant, the girl had already arrived and ordered the most expensive food and drinks. Halfway through the night, she randomly started accusing Nixium of being emotionally abusive and wasting her time. All of the other diners overheard and looked at him in disgust. She stormed out, and Nixium was forced to pay for the entire meal. He didn't even have a chance to eat anything.
Ramona was trying to diet and exercise and had been sharing her efforts on social media. One day, she noticed a woman was starting to follow her efforts. That would have been fine, except the woman would keep sending her the message,
"You want to know how to lose weight? Drink Skinny Man's sperm."
Ramona would just stare at her comments, shocked. It took 3 years for the woman to stop stalking her online, sending her comments and telling her to join her study where women were drinking Skinny Men's sperm. Ramona doesn't even know what was going on in that woman's head. Probably wasn't a woman. A couple of years ago, Mikhailom lost his grandfather to leukemia. A month after his grandfather's passing, he had a dream about the two of them playing a game of chess. It wasn't too weird until his grandfather began breaking down in the middle of the game and kept saying, "Not yet, not yet, don't go yet." Then he looked at Mikhailom with a horrifying looking face. It was a twisted expression of pain and sadness, but his eyes were missing. All Mikhailom saw were empty sockets. As his grandfather repeated what he had said earlier, Mikhailom woke up to the sound of his alarm clock. He thought it was just a dream, until he saw the chessboard on the floor. It was always kept on the top of his dresser.
When Melissa walks home from night school, she passes down a block that takes her to her house. But on this night, while Melissa walked, she heard 2 gunshots. At that moment, she was terrified, so she started to speed walk. When she reached the corner, Melissa crashed into a man with a black hood, and since it was night, she couldn't make out his face. But the thing that caught her eye was that the man was holding a gun. At that moment, Melissa thought her life was going to be over. That is, until the man said, "You never saw me," and he ran to the next block. After that, Melissa called the police when she got home, but they never found him. And ever since, she never walked on that block again.
When Melissa was 16, she dated a guy she didn't really like. Despite being a nice guy, the spark in their relationship was just no longer there. When they went on a date one night, she had planned on telling him that it just wasn't working anymore. But when they got to the restaurant, he said he had a special surprise at the end of dinner. Melissa immediately thought he was going to propose. She saw that they had a karaoke machine and a huge stage, so she did one of the dumbest and cruelest things in her lifetime. Melissa picked a song, went on stage, and said into the microphone,
"This goes out to my boyfriend. I hope you enjoy it."
He blew her a kiss and she started singing Tainted Love. When it was over, Melissa saw that he wasn't in the restaurant anymore. He was outside, crying. She felt awful, and he asked what he did wrong. It turned out that the surprise was Baskin Robbins, so Melissa didn't need to break his heart in front of about 70 people. She realized only afterward how dumb it was to think he would propose, since they were only 16.
Robo's ex-boyfriend said he was cool with her being asexual because he claimed he was asexual as well. After 6 months of dating, he asked why Robo wouldn't put out. Robo reminded him that she was asexual and that he was supposed to be too. He said he thought asexual meant that Robo wouldn't do anything kinky or participate in a three-way or other adventurous sexual activities. After Robo called him out on his lie, he said Robo should be grateful because it was his way of giving them common ground. You know, rather than being honest and having genuine mutual interests. They broke up 4 years ago, and in those 4 years, he fathered 2 different kids with 2 different women. Asexual, he is not.
When Dolan was 3 or 4, his grandma drank so much, she got confused and started singing happy birthday, but it wasn't Dolan's birthday. 5 minutes later, she stripped naked and jumped in the freezing cold water of Dolan's pool. As soon as she jumped in, she started screaming, "Dolan! This alligator's getting me! Help!" It ended up taking 3 hours to get her out of the pool.
When Pringle was 10, he was left home alone, waiting for his sister to arrive to babysit him. While he waited, he heard something coming from the living room. He thought it was his sister, so he called out to her a few times. Pringle got suspicious and thought she was trying to scare him. His room was at the end of a long hallway, so as he stepped out and looked down it, he saw a dark, shadowy figure with red, gleaming eyes. It was just standing there, right in front of his parents' bedroom. As soon as he saw it, the thing darted towards him. Terrified, Pringle ran back to his room, locking and barricading the door until his sister arrived. Later that night, Pringle had to use the bathroom. As he approached the bathroom, he saw it again. He started crying, then slammed the bathroom door, locking himself inside. Pringle stayed in the bathroom, not even needing to use it anymore. While he sat in there, he heard the thing whispering to him from the other side. It was saying,
"I see you. Please come out. Let's play a game."
That night, Pringle fell asleep in the bathroom. Luckily, he never saw whatever that thing was again.
During school, Hellbent was talking to his friends, and the topic somehow moved on to the subject of boners, as it does. Back then, he thought he had it all figured out.
When your penis gets erect, it grows a bone. And when you come, it's the bone inside of your erect penis melting and shooting out.
Is he proud that he actually believed that at any point in his life? No. Did his friends call him an idiot for it? Yeah.
In high school, some friends and I decided to visit the school at midnight. We jammed the door open with a brick at the end of the day so we could get in that night. We snuck in and kept the door jammed open just in case. We were poking around a gym storage cupboard when, after a few minutes, we heard a door slam shut. It was the door we jammed open. We heard footsteps approaching and we freaked out and hid. The school didn't have any security that we knew of. Those footsteps came right towards us, like they knew where we were. My heart was pounding in my chest. As it got closer, we could hear a man mumbling to himself. He sounded angry and erratic. The steps passed by and turned a corner. As soon as they did, we ran hard as we could. We never looked back.
Froggy was 12 when she hung out with her badass older brother. One day during recess, Froggy and her brother were practicing baseball when a large, scruffy-looking man walked up behind them. He pulled out a machete and charged at Froggy, but her brother immediately jumped in front of her and hit him on the head with his metal baseball bat. The man lied on the ground unconscious with a broken nose. After that, Froggy's brother picked her up and ran to the teacher. When the police arrived, they arrested the man. Apparently, he assaulted his family, which explained the stains on his coat.
My brother is a nice guy. When he was 19, he let a girl stay with him who was down on her luck. He didn't try anything pervy or anything. She slept on the couch while he slept in his bed. Things went smoothly during the day, but at night they got a little weird. Every once in a while, Dolan would wake up in the night to see this girl standing in his doorway. She would just watch him. Dolan casually brushed it off, but he still found it creepy as hell. One day he pretended to stay asleep to see what she did. While peeking slightly, he saw her take off her pajama pants, squat down, and take a huge shit in his doorway. Dolan was absolutely stunned. It smelled so bad. When she was finished, she seemed to snap out of her weird trance and hurried to clean it up before anyone noticed. He couldn't figure out why she would do this. Needless to say, she didn't stick around for long after that.
Back in the 5th grade, when Andy had little to no knowledge of sex, her best friend told her that one could get pregnant by kissing. Immediately, she began to internally panic as she heard this. Andy remembered that way back in the day she had been playing pretend with her cousin, that she was Princess Zelda and he was Link. He saved her somehow, and to perform their roles correctly, they kissed. Just a little peck, of course. Andy thought that maybe the pregnancy was just dormant for about 7 years, and she was just gonna suddenly conceive a baby sometime in the next week. Okay, I think that the weirdest thing that I've ever been caught doing is giving myself a big-ass pep talk. Seriously, whenever I feel down or unmotivated, I will go out, pace around, and I will explain to myself why I just need to suck up the sadness, the laziness, stop the procrastination or whatever, and just get the work done. I will pump myself up with some epic speeches. Then I'll go pump some iron, and then whatever it is I need to do, I will go and get it done. But the thing is that when I was younger, one time I didn't realize that my mother was home, and so she caught me lecturing myself about how I need to stop making so many excuses and just get my writing papers done for school. It was pretty awkward when she walked in and said, "Who are you talking to?" I got an A on all the papers, so pep talk still worked. Yeah.
One summer, Hellbent went on vacation with his boyfriend. He hadn't told any of his friends about his vacation because he hadn't come out yet. When they landed on the island, Hellbent told his boyfriend that one of the passengers on the plane looked exactly like his best friend. A couple days later, they were sitting near the bench when Hellbent had to use the bathroom. After going, he came out of the stall to see the passenger who looked like his best friend. Well, it turned out that it was his best friend. Hellbent tried to sneak past him, but his friend saw him before he was able to make it out of the bathroom. After talking to each other, Hellbent learned that his best friend was also there with his boyfriend, which was surprising because he had always heard his friend talk about girls in their class.
This one time, Doopy had a crush who she was head over heels for. She wanted to tell him how she felt, so she decided to ask her friend for some advice. Doopy's friend told her,
"If you want him to like you back, what you need to do is look straight into his eyes and make the weirdest face possible."
Doopy was skeptical, but she decided to try it because her friend knew a lot more about boys. She probably should have listened to her instincts though, because it didn't work. Oh well, Doopy, they say a bit of public embarrassment is good for you. Builds character.
Sid was walking home after school when a girl asked if he could help her with something. She offered to pay him $300, so Sid agreed. She took him to her house and went into the backyard. In the middle of it, there was a giant pool filled with jelly. The girl told him that she wanted to see if it was plausible to swim in jelly, and he went to change. Once he was changed, the girl had her phone out and looked as though she was preparing something, but he didn't care. He put on the goggles and rigorously tried to swim through the jelly, but by the time he swam to the other end of the pool, the girl was laughing hysterically as she looked down at her phone. She said nothing, but when Sid looked over her shoulder, she had posted it on YouTube. It was worth it though, because in the end, he still got the $300.
This happened 2 years ago to Hellbent and his dad, who were working in the backyard all day. And when they were done, they decided to make a little fire pit. About 10 minutes into their little fire, Hellbent saw their neighbor peek over the fence to see what the smoke was about, then went back into her house. When that happened, Hellbent thought it was nothing. But 10 minutes later, when he went inside his house, he heard a loud knock at the door. It was the fire department. The neighbor called the fire department on them because they made a tiny fire pit. Hellbent and his dad were also forced to put it out, and this got his parents a bit salty. Today that neighbor has moved out, or will move out, because there is a for sale sign in front of their house. Hellbent doesn't think they like them after that.
Nexium went to his friend's sister's 15th birthday party. At the party, the friend's young cousin came to sit next to Nixiom and his friends to pass the time. Nixiom made friends with a tiny spider, was watching it as the small boy accused them all of being part of the Illuminati. He said that if Nixiom and his friends were all normal, they would not need the glasses they were all wearing. Nixiom then told the boy that he was right, and their glasses broadcast everything they see, and that the spider was a secret Illuminati operative that came to observe. The boy then texted his brother about it and killed the spider. Nixiom was kind of upset about him killing the spider, so he told the kid the Illuminati will be visiting him and watching him every night from now on unless he left them alone and never told anyone. For the rest of the night, he steered clear of them.
One time when Spinal Palm spent the night at his friend's house, he left his phone charger there. The next time he went over, his friend told him that his mom had found the charger and had put it in her closet. So Spinal Palm went to the closet, and sure enough, he saw the charger on the top shelf. But next to it was a board game that looked like the Game of Life. So he pulled it out and asked his friend if he wanted to play. They opened it up and quickly discovered it was not the Game of Life. The first card Spinal Palm read said, "Do the 69 position and let your partner try to sing a song to you." They decided to stop playing right about then.
Back when McCallum was in preschool, a kid brought in a video recorded to school for show and tell. The video was of his mom and dad wrestling. The teacher was mortified, and the kid got in trouble. When the parents got there, they talked to the teacher, and as they were talking, McCallum heard the parents go, "Why did you take the recorder and show them that?" The kid said, "My friend said his brother told him wrestling was fake, so I showed him it isn't fake." McCallum still can't stop laughing at that memory.
One time Slap Tam and his friends made plans to have lunch together. While he was waiting for his friend to arrive, a homeless lady came and sat at the bench next to him. Slap Tam tried to ignore her, but he soon realized she was staring at him. Slap Tam looked at her and tried to think of something to say. In the end, he couldn't, so they just stared at each other in silence for like 15 minutes. Slap Tam really needed to get away to find his friend, so he pointed at the sky and shouted, "Look!" When the homeless lady's head was turned, he got up and ran away as fast as he could. One day, Ghost Toast rode his bike over to his friend's house. It was a really hot summer, so they planned to stay in and play video games all day. When he got there, he noticed he had a text from his friend saying he had to go to the shops with his mum. He said he'd be back in 10 minutes and that Ghost Toast should just let himself in. But when Ghost Toast went inside, he saw something that he can never unsee. His friend's dad was standing in front of the air conditioner unit with his pants around his ankles. With his fingers, he was spreading his ass cheeks wide so that the cool air could get in there. They locked eyes for 3 excruciating seconds. Then, Ghost Toast excused himself and rode straight back home.
Every year, Nixiom and his family went to a carnival in the country. It was usually pretty fun. There was a hayride and soccer matches and tons of food. When he was about 11 years old, he was in line for food and was standing behind a woman he had never met. They started a conversation, and for a while he thought she was pretty interesting. And then, out of nowhere, she says, "I was once chased by a naked man." Nixiom just kinda nodded his head, but was thinking, what just happened? After he got his food, he walked away as far from her as possible, and he never spoke to her again.
When Ramona was in high school, her mom was very strict about her getting good grades. One time when Ramona's grades slipped below an A+, she decided to humiliate her in the weirdest way. Her mom would spike her own hair into a giant pink mohawk and put on a belly dancing outfit, then drive to school to talk to her teachers. On her way to the office, she would make fun of students and even stop to pop a kid's zip before loudly leaving the school. Ramona was so embarrassed that she never failed a test ever again. That's disgusting. You just popping random kids zip. Hey, come here, kid. You see all that yellow pus just come out of there like Osmosis Jones.
One morning, Pandora woke up after having a very sexy dream. Her first impulse was to text her friend about it, so she grabbed her phone and wrote, "Oh my god, I dreamt I was squirting." But when Pandora hit send, she realized she sent it to her mother by mistake. Her mom sent back a bunch of question marks, so Pandora had to cover up saying, "Oops, stupid autocorrect. It's supposed to say surfing." Her mom was not convinced by this lie, so it was a pretty embarrassing morning for Pandora.
The worst situation Andy Mations has been in was in 2nd grade, and when she was practicing for a Christmas theater production. Her mom put a lot of hairspray in her hair for the big day and then dropped her at school. During the performance, she was holding a real candle, making sure she kept it away from her body. However, the kid behind her wasn't paying attention, and suddenly Andy Mations could smell burning. The hairspray in her hair blew up into flames, and her cheek, shoulder, and neck were burned pretty bad. Luckily, it was put out before any serious physical injury occurred.
Pringle once got permission to camp on the side of a quarry that mysteriously exploded in the 1930s, killing 50 men. He was camping near the site when the ground started shaking and an extremely loud bang woke him up. 10 minutes later, he heard quick whispers coming from all directions, and then it went eerily silent. All of a sudden, a weak voice that sounded like it was gargling blood asked Pringle, "Why me?" He freaked the fuck out and ran away from the quarry, leaving his equipment behind.
Tollip was on a bus with his friends once and they were joking around. Tollip had a particularly funny story and his friend laughed so hard that they peed their pants. His friend realised what had happened and covered himself with a bag to hide the accident. The disturbing part was while his friend waited for his stop, he took his finger and dabbed it in the pee and then licked his urine-covered finger. Tollip almost projectile vomited from the sight, but his friend shrugged and said, "Whatever, it's pretty good." He couldn't look at his friend in the eyes after that.
When he was 5 years old, Pringle was jumping between his and his sister's bed, thinking he could use his blanket as a cape to fly. It was fun for a while until he missed the landing and forgot that his sister's crystal and rock collection was laying under the bed. He landed on his back, not knowing the damage he had done. He managed to rip his right heel completely open. For some reason, he didn't feel the pain. He walked out to say goodnight to his mom, only to end up with a trip to urgent care where the doctor told him he shattered the nerves in his foot. The feeling in his foot eventually came back, and now he has a cool scar.
In high school, I one day worked up the courage to ask out the prettiest girl in my class. Through some miracle of modern science, she said yes, which was just amazing. I took her out to KFC, which was my favourite food at the time and is to this day. And when I was trying to order a Zinger Burger combo for us both, ninjas attacked. Now this is not unusual in my part of Australia, but I think a few of the people were a little taken back, so I did most of the fighting. I did my best to make sure no one else around me got hurt, but when I turned around, the girl I had brought out had received a small cut on her arm from one of the ninjas. She blamed me and we broke up that day. I still think about her sometimes.
When Shima was a kid, her family lived in a really close community. Everyone knew their neighbors were drug dealers. When Shima was 13, her mum screamed, but shut up real quick. Like any curious kid, she went to the window to peek out. There were 35 SWAT and ATF guys using the front yard as a staging area, and her mum screamed because one popped up right in front of the window. Apparently the neighbors were not only selling drugs, but also making them in the basement of their house. They had a bunch of guns to keep people out. About 10 years later, it happened again. Only the one making the drugs ended up being the landlord. He just used what was left to make a grow site. Shima hopes they have the same jail because the landlord was the one who turned the neighbors in. Evidently, he thought it would be a great idea to start doing the exact same thing that got the people who were in his building arrested.
When Dolan's brother was in 1st grade, he said something he now regrets. To start her lesson, the teacher made everyone sit down on the floor. Dolan's brother thought the other students were sitting a little too close to him. He wanted to impress everyone with a big word, so he said,
"Guys, can you back away? I'm constipated."
He meant to say claustrophobic, but it was too late. The teacher corrected him and everyone laughed at his expense. He still can't figure out why he had trouble making friends that year.
Endura was working at Walmart one day when a customer came up to her and asked, "Can you stop making Kit Kats? My son is allergic to them and every time we come in he wants them, but he has to go to the hospital after eating them." Pandora had to explain for 15 minutes that they didn't make the Kit Kats and couldn't stop selling them because one person is allergic. So whenever Pandora sees the customer with her son, they take the Kit Kats and hide them from people.
One time, I was at the fair with my family and I saw this really cute boy sitting at the bench next to me. I had this gigantic inflatable hammer that I'd won from a previous game, and I decided that I would pretend to fight my sister with it to impress the guy. It was really stupid. I swung the hammer and hit my sister with it, but it bounced off my sister and hit me directly in the face. I was mortified and everyone was laughing, including him. It was so embarrassing.
When Salty Squid was 18, he told his dad that he was going to the pharmacy. His dad asked why, and Salty Squid told him that his girlfriend was gonna come over and stay overnight. His dad then told him that he was gonna go with him. So they drove to the nearest pharmacy, and as they entered, Salty Squid started looking for condoms. He looked for about 2 minutes when all of a sudden his dad shouted, "Fruit tasting or simple condoms? Heard your girlfriend likes the banana ones." There were about 15 people who heard him. They bought the fruity ones and drove home. When Salty Squid asked his dad why he did that, he said, "Remember when you pranked me with the toothpaste instead of milk cream and the Oreo cookies? No one destroys my delicious tasty sugary treats!"